Welcome everybody to another episode of Pod Between Worlds. I'm your host Steve, alongside host Ollie, and today we're going to talk about some of the recent rumors and news going around in terms of Solo. We got some Tarkin news. We also got this huge rumor on the Sequel Trilogy. Another rumor. Also some Mandalorian news, and Ollie's going to kick us his theory or Moff Gideon theory related to the Mandalorian coming in hot.
All right, what do we got?
Dude, how was your weekend? You always do this. You just want to go right into the news. You don't even want to say hi, how's it going? You're just like,
Hi,
whatever.
how's it going? Everybody's
Okay,
so
whatever.
interested.
All right, we're done. We're going to the news. All right. Well, you're streaming at 9 o'clock, so we gotta get that out there because Anyways, so the first thing, there is a lot of rumors that Solo is coming to Disney Plus. Now that's on the heels of Donald Glover reportedly being cast as Lando for an unnamed Disney Plus series. There's also a lot of there's been interviews with Alden Ehrenreich.
Clarify a little bit though, because when you say that, it sounds like the movie's coming to Disney. The movie's already on Disney. You mean a show?
A TV show,
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Solo is coming to Disney Plus in the form of a TV show instead of Solo 2.
Yep.
And then the rumors of there's a series with Darth Maul that's going to be involved, or Darth Maul is going to be in some Disney Plus series. Qira is going to be coming back. So all this stuff going on. And then today there was an article by Star Wars Unity that said that that Solo was possible, or they're saying that Solo is coming to Disney Plus in the form of a TV show. So, I mean, I'm super excited about Solo being in the form of a TV show. But what do you think, Ollie? Do you think this is still speculative? Do you think?
So we mentioned it.
Does it make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is still all speculation, right? This is what we always talk about, right? It gets confusing. These are like, I'd almost put it in like 4 categories, like wild rumor, kind of confirmed rumor, official source rumor, and then Star Wars confirms it, right?
Right.
Like, so right. I think these are like in that official source rumors. Like Star Wars hasn't come out unless, did I miss it? Star Wars didn't say we're doing a Lando series, but like really good sources that aren't rumor mongers are like Donald Glover's back. They're pursuing this.
Most of them have come from Kessel Run Transmissions.
Yeah, but they have
They have. I mean, they have their sources. I mean, that I would. The odd thing to me is still the fact that it's not officially confirmed by Star Wars.
So you would put it at more like the number 3 rumor, not wild, but like still a rumor.
I'd still say rumor, just in the case of.
Fair enough. Because it wasn't like a bunch of publications like Hollywood Reporter and all these different people. It was Kessel Transmissions, which is a good source, but it hasn't been like backed up by a million places yet.
Right. If I hear it from like even like a Cinema Blend or Screen Rant, if I hear something from them, I would be like.
So we'll put it at a level 3 rumor.
Yeah.
Right. Yep. Or level 3 information. But yeah, so even with that being said, if that's going to be our new ranking scale. All right. So we'll write it down now. Level 1 is Star Wars confirmed. Level 2 is like a lot of solid sources are saying it's true, and now we're just waiting for confirmation. Level 3 is like 1 or 2 that are like pretty good sources, but no one else has backed it up, and 4 is just kind of a wild rumor.
Yeah,
you like that?
The later thing we're going to talk about.
Right, all right. So this is a level 3, but I would say this is a solid level 3 because Kessel Transmissions doesn't just throw random shit out there, and it makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense,
right?
It doesn't. We've talked about this like in past episodes that Solo should be a TV show.
Right. So this is what. Yeah. So that was a long-winded way of me getting back to the point that last time we talked about that. I think it's a perfect setup for like a like the Arrowverse, right? Please, not that acting and that writing, but
oh god.
My point is the combination. So you have Arrow, you have Flash, you have what was the other one in that.
Supergirl,
and they're all okay. Yeah, they're all. Oh, did she get her own show too?
thought she did. Maybe I don't know. I
But
lost
anyways,
track after
so
that.
they all like they had their own shows, but they also were on each other's shows and they had crossovers. So I think this could be a good opportunity, or actually maybe a better version would be the Marvel one with Daredevil and Jessica Jones and Punisher, like that kind of thing.
With good acting,
Right? Yeah. Oh, Rosario Dawson was in that one. So that would be my hope. Yeah, that you get like a. And maybe it doesn't need to, maybe they all don't need their own shows. Maybe like Lando Solo and Qira Darth Maul or some combination. But even if they have enough scripts to do all four, great. More power to them, right? But yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense. You have those, as far as I know, you have like all those actors were signed for more stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
None of them, even though Solo didn't do good at the box office, I don't feel like any of them got a lot of hate. You know what I mean? Like Donald Glover definitely didn't. Everybody loved him.
No.
Amelia Clark didn't get any hate. Everybody loved her. Everybody loved seeing Maul, even if they were confused. Maybe Alden got a little bit of hate, but I think that was more early on. I think that's moved on. I think he did a really good job. I mean, he had the toughest role, the main character, people obsessed with Han. You know, but I
played it.
I thought he did a great job.
Fine.
I think he did the perfect line of like getting in character but not doing an imitation. Like he did his own thing, right? Like sometimes if you do it, you cross the line of like, are you just imitating Harrison Ford? You know, and I don't think he did that. I think it was different enough. And granted, it helps when you're in a different it helps when you're in a different timeline. You know what I mean? Like if they remade the original trilogy and use like a lot of people want to see Sebastian Stan as Luke, that'd be tough because you're comparing the exact same age to the exact same age. You know what I mean? But if you do a different age, I think you can mess around with it. Anyways, I'm getting long-winded. I think it's excellent. I think it really is. I think there's a lot of material there. You have a lot of time before you start running into like Rogue One, New Hope. Like nobody really needs to be anywhere, right?
Yeah.
Rebels. So yeah. So Rebels. So somewhere Darth Maul has to disappear and get to Malachor, right? That's probably your earliest. I think that's probably your earliest connection to where they need to be.
Actually, so is there anything out there that connects? So when Darth Maul goes to Malachor, it seems like he's kind of out of place in terms of the Crimson Dawn. Like he's still.
Well, he's found on Malachor. Yeah. So something goes wrong with Crimson Dawn.
Yeah.
And
so
he
maybe
gets
that's what
marooned
this
or
is
something.
gonna.
Or that's what he said. It could be a lie. Who knows?
True.
But
well, like we don't see them in Rebels.
I think he specifically says, so unless he's straight up lying, I think he says he's been there for years. So he has to end up. But again, isn't Solo, I believe, took place 10 years before A New Hope? Is that what they were saying?
I think it was 10 years. Yeah.
10 to 15. 15 may be too long.
I think it was like 13 initially or something like that, and then it went down.
Ended at 10 or something. But that's plenty of time. I mean, think of all the stories they jammed in between A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back with the comics. Well, you can go on a million things. The other one we may want to maybe we'll look into it if these get announced. The Last Shot book, which was excellent, that details the two different timelines of Lando Han stories. I think one of them actually happens prior to Solo, or around there, because Lando has L3. One of the stories is after, but it's a time jump where it goes back and forth. So he still has L3, and I think that happens before Solo. So again, timeline wise, you have like let's safely say it's 10 years before, right? And Rebels is roughly 2 years before, and let's give Maul even give Maul 5 years to have to be on Malachor, right? Even if you did that, you still have 3 years of content for Maul, and he's the only one that would have to disappear. You know, you have basically 8 free years of Han, Lando, and Qira. You could go whenever.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, so there's plenty of time. I think there's a good amount of interest in like a vocal not even a silent majority of people actually really liked Solo, right? I think it would be good, and I think with this whole Disney Plus thing opening up the genres, the movie felt very Indiana Jones, so you could go that route with Han and Lando, like that fun adventure type movie. Maybe even mix in some Afro. Maybe that's what they base it on. You know what I mean? That kind of genre. And then with Qira Maul, you can do more of like a crime syndicate kind of dark thing, and you can weave them together. I think it'd be awesome.
Yeah.
What about? Sure. I mean, is that what you're thinking? Like, how do you feel about it?
Yeah. I mean, it's. I mean, just a solo TV series in general, just Solo itself, I mean, would be perfectly fine with me. I think they need to come out with something that fills in the gap.
Yeah.
Last Shot, I will say, I was actually not a fan of that book. I might have to reread it because initially when I read it, I was not.
Gotcha.
Like, it was okay, but it wasn't great to me. So
I enjoyed it a lot. I thought the villain was cool, not very Star Warsy. So I thought it was interesting. The whole droid like revolution takeover thing. I thought it was interesting. He very much, part of it was almost like a horror movie where they go to that prison and like it was. I thought it was good. Yeah.
Yeah. So. But yeah, the TV series, I mean, anything related to Darth Maul, I like. I mean, I definitely want some more answers.
Well, we'll see. Did you see that whole Ray Park thing? So they'll have to figure that whole thing out. Who knows?
That, or maybe like Sam Whitner will play him, and then like they'll put Ray Park's face, like kind of like what they did with Tarkin.
I think
that's
a lot of people going back and forth on that, and like I'm one of those people like on like, oh, Ray Park, get a new actor. He doesn't look. Whitwer doesn't. I understand. Whitwer doesn't look like Maul and all this stuff, and I was just like, I just like him over. It's all painted. He's all painted up. Like if Whitwer plays him, he's an older version. Like it is what it is. Like if Ray Park really did that stuff and is all screwed up, like then just give Whitwer the role. Like he's the voice. So like who cares? He doesn't. It's not like he looks the opposite of Darth Maul. You paint him up and you make him like he's gonna be a little bit different at that time period. You know what I mean?
It's the same thing as like friggin' Rosario Dawson being cast as Ahsoka Tano. It's
similar, like, other than Ray Park's. They have a real footage of him or whatever. But I can't be bothered with that stuff. If someone's a better fit, you know what I mean? And is already the voice. It's not like you're just picking someone random. Like if it goes down the way that it looks like, and Ray Park did this kind of stuff, like then he's gone. There's a reason to do it. You know what I mean? Whitwer Erdy is he's more Maul than Ray Park in terms of the voice and doing all the stuff. You know what I mean? So I don't have a problem with it. Like I'd be fine with just going with Whitwer. So
yeah, it wouldn't bother me either. But it's just it's you know, how old is Ray Park? Ray Park's 45, so it's not like he's even like.
But you saw the whole Twitter. What I'm talking about is he like. Did you see this whole Twitter thing? I don't even know how to explain it. He like posted a video of someone like his wife cheated on him, and he posted like a sex tape kind of thing, and like then they said it was hacked, but then his wife said it was him. It's like a bunch of he said she said kind of thing. But he did post, or on his Instagram it got posted. It was like a big deal.
Oh yigks! Yeah, no.
You didn't see that? Yeah, that's what I'm talking. That's what I'm talking about. Not if none of that had happened and he was completely like a normal dude, like he seemed like that. Then I'm all for Ray Park, like you know what I mean. But like no, that's what I'm talking about.
Okay. Yeah,
it's a complicated story because like he said it didn't. The last thing I read was like, oh, that wasn't me that posted it. I got hacked. So like it's still a little bit up in the air, but it doesn't look good. But either way, I'm just saying if it goes down and it is as bad as it looks, I have no problem with Whitwer. I don't really see the big issue with that.
Yeah. No, it doesn't bother me at all either. I mean, it's just, you know, some people they just want. It's like the same as you're saying with like Luke. Like they want Sebastian Stan to play Luke eventually. Like if they ever did a remake, that's gonna happen at some point. People are gonna have to
deal with it.
Accept that there's gonna be change within the roles and the actors and everything at some point.
Right.
So it's just, and Whitwer, like he's awesome. I mean, just that video of him doing the Kenobi is just like
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like you have an actor who he is an actor, and although he didn't physically perform Darth Maul in person, he's done the cartoon, so he actually has more time on Maul than Ray Park did. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He just wasn't the physical actor like at the time. So like so it's an even more unique case where you have a guy that's kind of embodies Maul even more. You know what I mean?
Right.
And he would just look different. But if they go with it, like I just hope that if they were going down this road and the Ray Park thing does blow up, I hope they don't scrap the show because they can't. You know what I mean? Just go with what works. Don't make it complicated.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Again,
Exactly.
it's not even the same thing as like the Leia thing. Like Darth Maul's all made up. He's got red and black tattoos. He got spikes coming out of his head. You don't like. He's a little bit older than you only saw him in a hologram. You know what I mean? So like, again, not worried about stunts. Ray Park was awesome at the stunts, but like again, easy to do a stunt double. The guy, it's all tattooed up. It's not like he's just like a human that you have to like match them. You know what I mean? Like I think it'd be very easy to do.
Yeah. Yeah. So. Yeah, I agree. I don't think there's any issue there. So, so we'll see. I mean, like I said, me personally, I just want a TV series with Solo involved. I don't care what form it comes in. Just give me anything at this point. So
I just want some of the stuff to start rolling out. Like Mandalorian's been so good, and not everything. If they put out 5 shows, not everything's going to be great. But like let's go. Right? Like, let's get this stuff pumping.
COVID, dude.
No, I get it, but it wouldn't be out now if COVID wasn't a thing.
No.
But,
I know, but I
want this to like.
More.
I just want this stuff to start coming out. Like, let's be able to see some of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So talking about Disney Plus series, just a quick thing. So apparently Tarkin is going to appear in the Cassian Andor Disney Plus series, although. It's not confirmed if who played Guy Henry is gonna play Tarkin, and then they're gonna put CGI over it like they did in Rogue One. So I mean I think that makes sense as casting Tarkin into the series, just because Tarkin was in Rogue One and he's very involved in the Empire during those days. So I'm sure you feel the same way.
Yeah, I'm cool with it. Again, this whole like likeness thing, like I don't mind if they just have Guy Henry play him. You know what I mean? I don't need the digital thing. It's cool, and I know they're advancing technology. That's awesome, but I guess my point is I would never want it to be a hang up if they wrote something really cool for Tarkin. I don't want it to be like oh shit, but we don't have the money to do that digital thing. Just do it. Like use an actor. Like it's fine. You know what I mean? Like
like Princess Leia. That at some point that's going to happen.
Yep. I know we talked about it for episode 9. I was fine with recasting. I love Leia. I love Carrie Fisher. But I think if the storyline, like Trevorrow's story, like if it was already written and you have to recast, you have to recast. It's real life. Like it happened. You know what I mean? Like I would have rather the recast than the digital stuff. And I know they didn't do either. JJ got creative and did what he could, and I thought it was interesting. But I just was upset that if they had written it, which we kind of found out that there was less of a plan, but it always seemed like there was already a plan, and Trevorrow did write a full script, you know what I mean? But I didn't want them to change everything, and I don't think, it doesn't sound like something that Carrie Fisher would have wanted either, you know what I mean? But, side note, I'm just saying, like, I think if you can do it, great, but I don't get hung up on these things. If you need to recast someone, or you know what I mean, or you need to not do the digital makeup, people will get over it if you write a good story. Like, it's fine. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Real life happens, Some people can't always play the same character.
So I'm just going to then wheelhouse into the rumor about that the sequel trilogy, that there is George Lucas cut leaks that would have featured better scenes for Rise of Skywalker and the series in general. This is by the same guy that was saying that Kathleen Kennedy is stepping down and for the last fucking 85 years, and has also been saying that they're going to erase the sequel trilogy, so set in the same vein, and then that in this article it says that 40% of the Rise of Skywalker would be different than almost an hour would be different from what the Rise of Skywalker released as, so the Lucas cut will say. And then there's like 2 scenes that are completely different. One of them featuring Rey, the other one featuring Ben Solo, and that there was supposedly supposed to be a reunion scene. So with what's his face, when Ben Solo kind of comes to the light and he sees the Force Ghost of Han.
Okay.
The Ghost of Han, I guess at that
Just
point.
in his head, yeah.
Leia and Luke were supposed to be right there as well.
Okay.
So that was one of the scenes that they said that was cut. That was part of the Lucas leaks, I guess. So that's just one instance, but there's a bunch of others. So, so I don't know if you got a chance to read that article, but what do you think? Do you think that Lucas is going to come back, and do you think they're going to try utilizing any of the supposed Lucas cut stuff?
Short answer, no. And this is not me saying I don't want it to happen or I do want it to happen or all this different stuff. Like, I just think this whole line of thought or all these rumors are just bullshit. Like, it's just cranky fans, and this is what they want to happen, right? Like, and some of it they'll get proven right, whether they're completely wrong right now or not. Like, Kathleen Kennedy will eventually step down, right? Probably sooner rather than later. But so that's kind of one of those rumors that, like, some of the guys have been saying for 2 years, right? So, like, I think this is one of those things that, like, they just keep putting out there in different intervals, and sooner or later they'll be right. You know what I mean? Because I think she will leave eventually, and probably it's seeming like maybe sooner than later. Maybe once this Disney Plus starts to kick off. Regardless of my thoughts on that, I really think that this Lucas thing is just utter bullshit. Like, why? It just doesn't seem like he's not. And like, I want him to come back. Don't get me wrong. Like, I hope I'm wrong on this, but, like, everything I've seen and read in terms of, like, actual quotes from him and him saying stuff, right? Or, like, multiple high-end sources reporting exactly what he said. Like, it doesn't sound like he wants to come back. Yeah, it doesn't sound like he's happy with the sequel trilogy, right? It wasn't what he wrote. We know that. But, like, in this culture, dude, like, why would he want to come back? He doesn't want to deal with this bullshit.
No.
You know what I mean? So, like, I just think it's just all the people who are crying about the sequel trilogy just want this stuff to happen. And I'm not even like I'm saying, like, I kind of want, it'd be cool if Lucas came back and Kennedy stepped down, but I think it's just a pipe dream. You know what I mean? I just don't think it's realistic. I don't think George Lucas is cutting Rise of Skywalker. And even if he did, here's my honest opinion on it. I don't want a George Lucas cut of a J.J. Abrams movie. I want George Lucas's movie. Yeah. Like, I don't, like, why do I, you know what I'm saying? Like, why do I care if George Lucas gets if he got all of the footage shot from the whole entire sequel trilogy? You think it would be great if he rearranged it?
What about Colin Trevorrow's?
Right, but that wasn't filmed. They're saying, like, it was shot and there's going to be, like, a movie coming out, like a version of it coming out. So I'm saying, like, all the scenes that were actually shot, like all the deleted footage, all the, you know what I mean? Hand that to Lucas. Do you think it's really that? Do you think he cuts it to a way that you would love the sequel trilogy anymore? Like, no, maybe a little bit, but the story's there. Like, how much could he change the story? So that's my point. Like, if you give him...
The story's already butchered, in my opinion, so it's kind of
right.
like...
So do you, like, he cuts it differently? Like, sweet. Now, if you're telling me I got Lucas's full script and... Yeah, I'd love to see that.
For the trilogy. If you got a script for the whole trilogy, that's a whole different deal.
Like, I'm down with that. But, like, yeah, even if it is true, I don't think it's true. I think it's all bullshit. Yeah. I think it's all hopeful. And all the people saying this that hate the sequel trilogy would also hate whatever George Lucas did, okay? They've been hating on everything since the original trilogy. So, like, most of these people, I don't know why they care so much. But the point is, even if it is true, do you want George Lucas's cut? Like, what difference does it make if you hated The Last Jedi or Rise of Skywalker? Do you think George Lucas cutting together J.J. Abrams' shots and film, you think that's going to make a difference? Like, it's not, it's not some, like, Schneider cut thing where he filmed all this stuff and then Whedon filmed, like, 80% of the movie. You know what I mean? Like, that's a different scenario.
It's different.
Like, it's...
That's whole...
Yeah, so A, I don't think it's true, and B, if it is true, I don't even know why it's interesting. I'm not saying the rumor's not interesting. It's fun to speculate. It's fun to talk about. I get it. I totally get it. It gets clicks. There probably is some rumbling going on, you know what I mean, at Star Wars. So, like, all of it's based in some nugget of basic truth, right? But I think the narrative of where it's going is just so overblown and probably so far off the truth of what's happening, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That I just think fun to talk about, but
I mean, at
I
this
can't
point,
imagine it happening.
according to this source, they're already going to erase the sequel trilogy, so they're already resetting Star Wars and all that. Like,
Yeah,
that's
there's been people
it's
saying
just,
it for 2 years. You know what I mean?
no, I'm just saying if
came
people
out,
listen to this crap, this is the stuff that we would already be at this point where, all right, we know we're going to reset. Like, it's
yeah, like we've talked about, it just doesn't make business sense, even if you wanted it. Okay, and again, the people that really want it wouldn't like it anyways. Let's be honest. Okay, so they really want it, and like what business at Disney is not erased, no matter how much of a dumpster fire you think it was.
You can't erase it. The only thing you can do is utilizing the potential alternate timeline thing, which
even that
could be
would, like,
interesting.
not be a good. I agree, interesting. I don't think it would be a good business move.
It wouldn't work. I don't think you're getting into like all this time parallel bullshit.
Yeah,
and that's a whole nother, like, if you're gonna start writing that sort of stuff, holy crap, you're gonna piss some people off. It's because Star Wars has always been like a linear timeline. It's never been like,
I think,
you go back in time.
I think at the end of the day, you can not like Disney Star Wars, you can hate Disney Star Wars, you can hate the prequels, you can like or dislike anything, right?
Yeah.
I think it's more of a function of the time. I think when you look at, and I'm not saying they're movie masterpieces, right? But like when you look at Star Wars in terms of like cinema, were any of them good? Like in terms of like movie cinema, like these like Oscar award winning shows, like it's sci-fi, it's fun, right?
No,
like so
sci-fi.
none of them were right.
No.
So let's not nitpick this. We have nostalgia with the original trilogy. We all love it, right? But let's not like put this on some crazy pedestal like it was the greatest film ever written, ever made. Maybe it's the greatest story ever written, right? But like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
I agree.
So my point is, like, as much as these people complain so much about Disney Star Wars and like, oh, this one failed and look at how much money it didn't make, the big thing they're missing is look how much money it did make, and how many fans
$5 billion.
I know, and how many fans there are. Like, a lot of these kids aren't saying much. Like, they love these shows, they love the movies, like as much as like some people just hate on it. So I think it's just as much a function of like where we are today with Twitter and social media and just the way it works, that all fan bases of all shows, of all media, are harsh about everything, right? Just Star Wars is the biggest or one of the biggest, so it's the loudest, So I think I just don't see the business side as much as I would like a lot. Like, I do like the Legend stuff a little bit better. So would I be interested in seeing that written or interested in George Lucas's version? Certainly. Would I like it more? Possibly. You know what I mean? Good chance, right? And I do like the sequel trilogy. But overall, it just doesn't make business. They're just not going to do it.
Yeah, no.
So it's just it's a talking point. Again, we get as much fun talking about it as everybody else, but I just don't think it's realistic.
Yeah.
Right. Business, like what they're actually going to do. I think there's a less than 1% chance any of this shit happens.
I mean, they just revealed, I wasn't even going to, I talked about on the HoloNet Live, they brought out, they revealed a little bit of the background of, was it Tales from the Galaxy VR, Tales from the Galaxy's Edge VR game. Mm-hmm. A video game is coming out, and it's kind of like, why would you be investing in a video game in an alternate timeline? Like, what if you're going to erase or, make this trilogy erased? Technically, right. Why are you coming out with this video game?
They just keep doubling down, right?
Like, that doesn't make sense.
It's not happening.
And now there was another thing. I also mentioned this on HoloNet Live that Marvel canceled the Rise of Skywalker comic series. So then people are seeing that and they're being like, oh, so does that mean that they're canceling the sequel trilogy?
Right.
No,
right.
They probably just canceled the comic series because of God knows what that we don't know.
Or having someone else write it. Yeah. I mean, there's a million things. Yeah. I think the best hope. I think the best hope for people who do not like, and there's this segment of people who are still really into Star Wars and didn't like the sequel trilogy. I don't think that's a lot, right? Yeah, but I think there's people that like it less than you and are still Star Wars, like really enjoy Star Wars. there's a lot of people that just hate Star Wars and just hate everything. So this isn't important to them. But I think the biggest hope would be like a Kathleen Kennedy steps down and someone maybe like a Favreau or a Filoni. I mean, it's a big position change, but like a Feige, someone like that steps in, and I think then your hope is that they go to the Old Republic, or maybe they catch the middle of the High Republic and they make that awesome. I think that's where if you're a big Star Wars aficionado and you didn't like the sequel trilogy, I think the hope should be that, right? I don't think the hope should be deleting the sequel trilogy because it's just not happening. So I think your focus should be somewhere else. It should be, let's make the Old Republic great. Let's make it happen. Let's make the High Republic great. Let's make it happen. Hell, maybe, I mean, they're not touching it now, but maybe in like 10, 15 years, let's make after The Rise of Skywalker great. Right? There was like there was a book or a comic series with Cade Skywalker that was like 60 years after Luke died or something like that, like way in the future. So like, I think that's the hope. If you really didn't enjoy the sequel trilogy, but you're really still into Star Wars and you like some of the stuff, you know what I mean, out there, I think the hope is that the High Republic's cool, and even if that's just middling, you hope it all gets under control and that they come out with like a different timeline, right? Not a different timeline, a different era of Star Wars, and you hope they make that great, Old Republic, and just kill it. I think that's a more reasonable, a higher percentage chance.
Yeah. I agree. I guess I'll move it along then from there. I know we want to get into your theory, but just a quick note. The Mandalorian has been nominated for 15 Emmys. I'm not going to go through all of them. I'll actually, know what, tomorrow's HoloNet Live, I'll go through them all. But they're on StarWars.com too if anyone's interested in reading them. But they got a lot, especially in their visual effects and sound editing and stuff like that. So pretty cool stuff.
It's awesome. It's good that the first, I mean, like we talked about before Mandalorian came out, this one was a big one for the future of Star Wars, right? And where we wanted it to go with Filoni and Favreau and stuff like that. And we knew if this one killed and did well, it would bode well for more Star Wars shows. And this was kind of the kicking off point. So the fact that this did so well and now is getting praise on like an actual film level other than just fan and reactions is really good news. If you're looking forward to the future of Star Wars on like Disney, like, TV shows and the future of Star Wars, really. I don't want to make it seem bigger than it is, but like The Mandalorian was a huge pivot point, right? In the future of Star Wars. If that sucked, we'd be talking about different rumors right now,
Yeah.
So it's good that it's good for a fan that wants more Star Wars that did well. So. Yep.
So we'll move from there to your theory about, what's your theory? Explain yourself.
Yeah. So this is like I figured this would be a fun time to do it because Mandalorian's a couple months away, and I'm going to do a Star Wars Academy video on this, right? On Gideon, Moff Gideon. From what we know, just to kind of get everything, I'm going to do a few Star Wars Academies, hopefully on kind of the Mandalorian stuff. Just maybe to help people who are into it and just want to know like what basis this could have on other stuff and what other canon media has impact on this. So this is kind of I want to say this is the 75% information built theory, right? So I've had this theory for a while now that there's some connection with Gideon directly to Palpatine and the Final Order. All right, so that's basically the simplification of the theory, right? Before I get into some of the nerdier details, basically I think that Moff Gideon is one of, we don't know how many, but one of a very select few, I would guess, that know Palpatine survived, okay? Know the general gist of what he's building, or at least are in his employ, okay? Let me not get into the Exegol thing. Maybe the people that know, it would be very Palpatine-esque to have, let's say, 10 people who know, all with different missions, but not knowing exactly what he was planning, kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So I think Gideon is specifically in charge, and this isn't like a stretch by any imagination, especially when I start to give you some of the canon backing for this, but like I think basically the whole story of the Mandalorian with Gideon is he is after Baby Yoda, which we know, right? He is after Baby Yoda for the DNA because Palpatine is starting his cloning and is trying to find all of the information he can on Force-sensitive beings and stuff like that to try to get a Force-sensitive body for clone. Right? Because we know he did it with his son. That's how Rey comes about, right? So we know he's doing this, and we know he's gone through clones and stuff like that. So the basic theory is that Gideon knows Palpatine's alive, is working directly with Palpatine or for Palpatine to get, and maybe not just the Baby Yoda, but his job is to get Force sensitives and stuff like that, so that they can test them and maybe come up with unlocking the key for Palpatine to clone, to get a host body that is strong with the Force, right? And be able to clone kind of the Force into it.
Yep.
So there's a lot that goes into this. I'll just get into some of the basic stuff that I find interesting, okay? One of the interesting things is the fact, and so I went back and read this, and I'll have the passages, the exact passages in the Star Wars Academy video for like breakdown. People have taken it different ways, but basically in the novel of The Last Jedi, okay? I keep saying The Last Jedi. In the novelization of The Rise of Skywalker, it gets into a little bit of a lot more detail than the movie, but it gets into more detail of Palpatine's whole thing, right? Of like him dying on the second Death Star, dying, immediately transferring his consciousness to the Exegol thing. It gets into a little bit of like you know what I mean? Just like not like super fine detail, but like enough that's more than what you get in the movie, right? So it kind of breaks it down a little bit. Okay, from his lines in the movie, is it Allegiant General Pride? Is that his name? The guy that kills Hux. I'm trying to think of his. It is Pride. I'm just trying to think of his title. I think it's Allegiant General. Throughout the movie, he's the first one to contact Palpatine, and he's the one that Palpatine offers like the fleet to, right?
It's General Pride.
Just General
Allegiant
Pride.
General.
Oh, Allegiant General. Okay.
Yeah, you're right.
So, in the book, there's even more of that, and some of the passages I think people have read as. I think people took it at face value to mean more of like that Pride always believed in Palpatine's vision. And was kind of one of the old guard in the First Order, meaning he believed in what Palpatine was doing, not so much the First Order. You know what I mean? Like he was still loyal to Palpatine. So like when Palpatine came back, there was no question. Some of the specific passages, to me, read much more, and it's like a semantics thing, read much more as he knew the whole time. He was always working with Palpatine. Because they say he had communications with Palpatine. And I think people have read that as more like once he knew that Palpatine came back, like once Palpatine sent out that thing and Kylo was looking for him. In the book, the exact passages, I think, read quite different than that. I think they specifically tell you that while he probably didn't know the whole plan and didn't understand necessarily the cloning, because I think he's one of these guys that doesn't really believe in the whole Force thing. You know what I mean? I think he knows that Palpatine has something, but I don't think he's super like into the whole Force and Force users. I think he thinks it's overblown. But I think he's working with Palpatine the whole time. And I thought that in the movie, and when I read that, I thought that. So going off of that, that means that Palpatine did have, which makes sense. I mean, it almost makes no sense that Palpatine put the contingency plan into place, right? Had the First Order do the First Order thing while Snoke was a clone, right? Basically ruling through Snoke, but no one else knew about the Final Order. Like, it makes a lot more sense that he would have agents throughout the First Order, in the New Republic, all these different things. Very few, but that he was always grooming to know that the First Order wasn't the plan, right? Like, it was always the Final Order. That was the big thing, right?
Yeah.
So if that's the case, then a lot of the stuff that Moff Gideon does, the whole testing of the Baby Yoda, which we still really got no answer for, right? We just know that they tested him. It was, what was the guy's symbol, the cloning guy, Kamino, who orchestrated the whole Kamino brain chip thing?
Palpatine.
Right? In Aftermath, they use brain chips on these prisoners to do the whole attack on Chandrilla that were sent out by a signal that forced them to like start killing senators on stage. They were like rescued prisoners, like, right? So, and that was done by Gallius Rax, who was purposely groomed by Palpatine. Okay, so like all these things lead me to believe, and there's more, and I'll get into the details in my video, but like there's a bunch of these breadcrumbs that lead me to believe that there were certain people with certain jobs that knew Palpatine wasn't gone.
Yeah, I mean,
So I see Gideon much more as an integral piece, which makes the Mandalorian and the Baby Yoda story way more interesting than the general presiding theory that Moff Gideon's kind of one of the warlords that survived and didn't go with the First Order into the unknown regions and just kind of was power hungry and hung around. You know what I mean? Like on the outskirts of the New Republic. I don't think that's the case. I think it's a lot deeper than that. Somebody actually in Star Wars Star Wars Explained channel, he does a Q&A, and someone actually asked, does he think that Gideon was an Inquisitor? Which I don't think he was an Inquisitor, but that's an interesting one. It's an interesting one too, because if he is Force sensitive and can use the dark saber, very interesting. Because maybe he was tracking the Baby Yoda well before. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true.
Which would be interesting. And even, I will say this, interestingly enough, some of his uniform pieces, like the armor, does have like black and red on it. Kind of has an Inquisitor vibe. I never noticed it before. But when he comes out, he has a unique kind of armor uniform kind of thing going on. Which does
it's not
have...
that of a general.
Right. It has or a Moff, which is actually a government position, not a military position.
Right.
It does have an Inquisitor thing. So that being said, I think that's an interesting twist. Maybe like a part of the character. I don't think he's a straight up Inquisitor. I know there are some brothers and sisters because they named them all like the first brother, second brother. I think there are some we haven't met yet. If I'm not incorrect. But I don't think he's one of like the original Inquisitors. But I do think he may be Force sensitive. So maybe there's something to that.
Yeah.
So what do you think?
Maybe.
I know that was a lot. I don't have it organized yet. You know what I mean? It's just kind of, I just wanted to get it out there because we didn't have a fun theory to talk about tonight. So,
I mean, you've kind of been poking the bear with that theory.
Yeah.
You've made comments in the past, so it's not far-fetched to me. I mean, it makes sense. It would make sense from a story standpoint if he is tied to Palpatine and just that, he is looking for Baby Yoda for Palpatine specifically. That's his mission.
Yep.
I do find the Inquisitor thing kind of interesting, but I kind of don't. That part I'm more. The only thing with Gideon that I'm really interested in seeing is how the hell he got the Darksaber. And that piece I'm really interested in. But yeah, with the Palpatine thing, I'm actually not as surprised as you probably thought I would be. I think it makes sense. I think the pride stuff that you just mentioned, I didn't even think about that. So that makes sense.
It's just a small piece in the puzzle, but I think it's an interesting one because I think it was hidden enough, and especially since it was more laid out in the novel, I don't think a lot of people like noticed it. I think they just took it as a grain of salt kind of thing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just didn't really dig into it. Whereas I found it really interesting once I read the novel, being like, someone, which makes sense. There are people in the First Order and maybe outside the First Order that Palpatine had groomed, other than just Snoke. Like, you know what I mean? Like, people knew about the Final Order. Or, again, with this theory, nothing's proven. I'm not saying that Pride knew the whole plan. I'm saying that, like, Pride knew the Emperor was still pulling the strings, right? Yeah. And may have been in contact with him the whole time. Now, whether he knows about the Final Order and all that, that's not what I'm saying. It's not really important. It's more that he knew the First Order wasn't the game plan, wasn't the end game, right?
Right. I just... And
it makes sense for Palpatine. And they're two totally different things. I'm just using Gideon as the example. I'm using Pride as the proven example to me that Palpatine had agents that knew there was more than the First Order, right? And knew that he was still alive. So if they were out there, it stands to reason that Pride wasn't the only person in the entire universe that knew. And we're talking about a totally different timeline, right? This is only 5 years after he died. He's still going through this whole crazy cloning thing. We knew he tried to clone forever, right? He had the son, which became which gave birth to Rey, so he has a granddaughter. They said he cloned a bunch of different times. Snoke was like a failed clone thing. So you put that with the scientist from Kamino or the Kamino organization trying to get DNA sequencing from Baby Yoda, who all the Yoda species we know have all been Force sensitive, and you have Moff Gideon with the Darksaber doesn't really play into it, but it adds to it. He's the one specifically hunting Baby Yoda, and he tells them, you don't know how much this means to me. You don't know how, you know what I mean? Like, he makes it more of a thing than you would think it would be. Especially since we have no idea why he's looking for Baby Yoda. If he's just some warlord, why is he sequencing DNA from a Yoda species? Like, who? They wouldn't even know who they were. You know what I mean? So to me, it pitches a bigger plan.
The only thing, is there a clear-cut thing on how Palpatine survived the Death Star?
Relatively clear cut, yes, from the novel. It explains basically that he transferred. I would like to reread the passage again before I 100% gave it to you, but from my foggy memory of it, it does lead you to believe, or it kind of explains that he had this set up as a contingency plan. He was able to, right before he died, transfer his essence to this facility on Exegol, I believe, that he was working on, because this gets into the whole how he had the outposts and he was working with Thrawn to get into the unknown regions because he thought there was some power out there. I think the wrap up story is basically he found Exegol, which was this lost planet of the Sith, and so he set up a base there before he died. These are remember how he had the outposts on Jakku and that whole thing, and that's kind of where he had set up. So if he were ever to face that moment. He had this all set up. Gallius Rax was literally groomed from day one to have the contingency plan for when he died. So Palpatine legitimately, before... What was Gallius was third? So before... It was after the Clone Wars when he found Gallia, I believe. So sometime sometime in that dead area between the Clone Wars and A New Hope, sometime in there, he had already had this basically... semi-planned. He was looking to go to the Outer Rim, right? And the unknown regions, because there was some source of power out there. So he had groomed Gallius to put the Operation Cinder and move them out into the unknown regions where the First Order would take over. He had this all, I don't know how specifically planned, if he had known it was going to be called the First Order, if he already had clones of Snoke. None of that's explained, right?
Yeah.
But knowing what he did in the Clone Wars and how the fuck he took down all the Jedi, you have to imagine he pretty much knew this to a T. And that's the interest to me. If they can pull, that's why I'm hoping for this, is a big part of it, is because as much as it's backwards, it's the canon books and TV shows piecing together this story around what they did in the sequel trilogy. But if they pull this off, as much as you may hate what they did to Luke and this and that, it really becomes the Palpatine story. And he had this all set up the whole entire time. He knew how he was going to take the Jedi down. He was going to become the Emperor. As soon as he became the Emperor, he started planning he put in a crazy contingency plan for if he ever was killed. He was going to burn it to the fucking ground. He was going to send the remnants, the proven remnants, out to the unknown regions, which he had scouted and had places for. And he was going to basically, he knew he would die, and that's when the contingency plan would happen. He knew he could transfer his essence, so he knew how to do that. That wasn't just made up. He had this plan in place. He had Exegol set up to receive his essence or whatever. I don't think they exactly explain that part. But basically, he knew where he was going. He had the whole contingency plan set up from, before A New Hope. I mean, it's kind of... If it matches, and then you add The Mandalorian, where Moff Gideon's specifically looking for Yoda or any... Force-sensitive species, to give him more knowledge on how to clone better bodies to hold his force power on Exegol, while he's simultaneously putting a weird broken clone of Snoke. Maybe Snoke is what that DNA sequenced to, right? Because Snoke is some kind of odd clone that they fucked up a bunch of times that you can see in like his like failed bodies in Exegol when Ben walks through, right? Like finally he got one that could hold force power, because as much as we only saw like 10 seconds of Snoke, he had some legit force powers, right? So the body could hold, well, to a certain extent it could hold it. It looks like it was decaying, but maybe that was the problem, you know what I mean? So I hope, because I think it makes a fascinating connection. Whether you like it or not, it really becomes not the Skywalker saga, but the Palpatine saga. Because he literally set it up from day one. Before the prequels, he had the plan to take down the Republic, become the Emperor. As soon as he became the Emperor, he was like, well, if anybody ever takes over, here's how I get back in power. I fucking burn it to the ground, do all this stuff. I mean, it's kind of crazy. I'm not saying you love it. I'm just saying...
No, I don't. But
it's amazing.
That's how it works. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I don't love it, but you know, that's the story. I can't. It is what it is.
It is. I mean, it's fitting. It's not what we were. I guess I'm saying it's fitting and it's interesting. It just didn't work. It's not going to work for a lot of people because it was pitched. It was always pitched as the Skywalker saga, right? So the fact that Palpatine's own blood takes him down at the end actually is a really good, and I get it. They didn't plan this the whole time. Like, I understand. But the way it ended, and if they put the pieces together the correct way, it is unbelievably interesting writing and an interesting story that Palpatine, while he was able to fucking mastermind this whole thing, actually gets taken down in the end by his granddaughter, is really interesting. The problem is it was pitched as a Skywalker saga. They were the main characters the whole time. So like that gets, I understand why that's an issue. But if you take that out of it and look at just the through line, it's actually kind of interesting.
Yeah.
It's tough I'm a huge Luke guy. You know what I mean? So like, I get it. It's not, it doesn't leave the best taste in your mouth. But in terms of like, again, it makes
me more curious about what Lucas's scripts actually.
Oh, his had nothing to do with that. I don't think there was no First Order. The Palpatine died. Yeah, there may have been cloning. I mean, in Legends there was cloning, and I think he approved Zahn's things. I think in general, gave him his blessing. So there was Palpatine clones and stuff like that. So that part may have not been completely far off the truth. But I don't think it would have been this thing. I don't think Palpatine comes back in full. You know what I mean? Because it takes away a little bit of Anakin's sacrifice, which I think is a lot of people's problem with it. But
yeah, I mean, I'm kind of on that same fence. But like, I mean, I like overall, I like how it's played out, I guess. But like, yeah, I still have issues with the writing. You know, it wasn't the story I wanted.
I'd be interested to see someone, if that's how it all plays out. I'd be interested to see someone who had no fandom in Star Wars, right? Never saw the originals kind of thing, but is a big, like, it's tough to find, right? Because you want someone who is a big kind of sci-fi or fantasy nerd who's into these kind of universes, right? But someone who never touched Star Wars. If what I kind of just laid out is what the final story is told to be, and you had someone dive in, once it was all done, you had someone dive in and could watch all the content, right? Well, I wonder how, like, literally all, like, read the books, do, like, the whole universe, right? Yeah. From the prequels to the in the movie timeline, right? But like all the books in there. I wonder if a lot of the bad taste in our mouth of like the Skywalker saga and what happened to Luke and that Anakin's sacrifice was in vain and all this stuff that we feel is obviously because like we saw this as kids and loved the original trilogy, and then we got to see the prequels. So we were always pitched it's the Skywalker story, right? We were told over and over again it's a Skywalker story, and then it was beat to death with the new series that came out. It's the end of the Skywalker saga. They even called it that. It was never called the Skywalker saga before the new ones came out. You know what I mean? So we were like beat over the head that the most important people were the Skywalkers, right? Like this was their story. That's what they said. If that was never pitched and you what?
Well, yeah, that's why I was gonna say if that was never pitched, then yeah, maybe it might be a different reaction, but like it's the fact that it was always pitched as the Skywalker saga.
No,
and
so
the fact that
that's what I'm saying. Completely agree with you. But my point is, if you were never attached to the marketing of that, you were never attached to, and you never saw these movies when you were kids. Like if you got to see it all as one story now, that's what I'm saying. If the Palpatine thing goes down, I think it's actually really good storytelling. The problem is the way it was laid out.
I 100% will guarantee you right now, my fiance has not watched the new trilogy.
Yeah.
Guarantee she's going to be confused out of her mind with just watching the movies.
And I'm not, that's not my point. I don't even mean like people who are just watching it to watch it. Like someone who is really into it, but didn't have the nostalgia feels for the original trilogy and wasn't beaten over the head with the marketing of the new trilogy. You could just watch it without nostalgia, without the feels, without the marketing. You could just watch The Mandalorian and Rogue One and read some of the books and like be immersed in the universe if it actually was a masterpiece story through line, that it was really the Palpatine story. Because to me, like looking at it in black and white and trying to take away how I feel about what they did to Luke and that Rey wasn't a Skywalker and she's the one that ends it and that Ben died and there's no more Skywalkers and that Anakin's sacrifice is kind of in vain when you look at the story. All of that is because of the timeline I watched them in. It's because of nostalgia. It's because of how I feel about Luke, about how I wanted it to happen. All of that is colored by all those things. And it can't be taken away. Like that's just how I experienced it, right? But I'm trying to take a step back now that I'm seeing it, and I think the Palpatine thing is, again, you're going to say it wasn't planned. I understand that, but I'm saying if they now put it together and it does end up being that, it ended up being, in my mind, story-wise, a masterpiece somehow. But it was the Palpatine story. It was not the Skywalker story. And that's what I'm saying. I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know how I feel about, I think it could have been better as the Skywalker saga, right? But I'm saying it's really interesting.
I think that's the lure of Star Wars in a sense. I think that's why I got into it as a kid, the whole Skywalker saga thing. The whole Luke Skywalker, he's the unsung hero. He's
100%.
I think the new trilogy dismantles that. And not only that, it completely, like you were saying, it takes out, like, and I understand where you're coming from. You're saying without all the nostalgia and the marketing and stuff, it would be incredibly hard to find someone that is like that.
Well, and it'll eventually just be new kids.
The only reason, eventually, but I'm just saying right now, like that's why I said, like my fiance, for instance, I'm like, she's not super immersed in the Star Wars universe. Like, I tell her things and stuff like that. But, like, from a movie standpoint, like, she doesn't, like, she's never been like, oh, it's a Skywalker saga. So I will be interested to see how does she look at 7, 8, and 9. And then when she comes to 9 and be like, what the fuck? Like, that's what all I was saying. But, yeah, she's not as in depth in Star Wars as you're saying. You're saying someone that's completely never had
to me it's the whole.
She's the closest to me at this point,
right? But I'm talking about someone who's like really into it. She's watching it because it's entertaining and she wants to watch it with you. I'm saying someone who like is reading the books, like super into it. I think she'll probably like the sequel trilogy the most, and as much as it's probably more of a thing of the unexplained and maybe just not being super into it. The Palpatine thing, I'm sure, will be semi-confusing. Although someone who watches it straight through now, it may not be that confusing because they're going to watch it straight through and go, Palpatine died, but we were cloning people and he came back as a clone. Kind of makes sense. Like, I actually think the less you're into it, the more acceptable it is because I don't think you have as many questions. You're just like, it's a fantasy sci-fi movie that people get cloned and people are flying around with force powers. I'm supposed to be surprised that an old guy cloned himself? Like, it's actually not that shocking to a Like if I was watching a random series that in the first couple episodes they cloned people were flying around with laser swords cutting people's heads off, and then in the final series a guy gets resurrected from an exploding space station, I really wouldn't think that that's much of a leap.
I guess. I don't
Right?
know.
It's not when you look at it on paper of all the stuff that's in the Star Wars saga before that. The Palpatine thing really isn't even that weird.
Yeah, I guess so.
I completely agree. This is a hard conversation for me to have because I know what you're thinking and I get it. It is a stretch, but we're into it. We have nostalgia. We have all these biases built up. I'm saying when you just look at it on paper of all the stuff that's happened before Episode 9, Palpatine being resurrected is really not that weird.
I guess it's just me. It's just I look at it and I'm like, why?
Right, and I'm asking you to step out of that and just look at it on paper. It's not that weird.
On paper, all right, I guess it's not that weird. I don't know. I kind of disagree, I guess, on a little bit. I just think the writing...
Like, I guess... So this is interesting to me. I know we're going over time, but, why is it...
And
but forget the writing. The resurrection of Palpatine is weird to you.
How can I forget the right?
I'm asking you... All of the things that happen in Star Wars, why is Palpatine coming back to life shocking? Why is that more shocking than someone falling from 1,000 feet and landing and being fine? Like, this is my point. Like, we've just accepted the things that have come before. So him surviving when he's the ultimate power in the entire universe, like, how is that a shock?
I just don't like...
You don't like it? That's not my question.
It just yeah, I don't like it. I
think
it's
fine.
Weak story.
And I agree to a certain extent. I'm not asking is it good? Is it awesome? I'm saying it's not surprising. It's not that weird.
I guess so. I don't know. I think it's just if he was resurrected, I guess it's not. The only thing is, do we have anything? And maybe I'm just going, blind in my head, but there's nothing. I know there's cloning, but there's not necessarily anything with resurrection.
Well, Bane and Plagueis talked about it. Anakin was made out of nothing. I'm saying there's a ton of... No, that's what happened. It's said in the comics. It's proven that...
No, it was vague in the comics. It wasn't a direct answer.
It wasn't a direct answer that Palpatine did it. It was a direct answer that there was no father. He was just created from the Force. That's canon fact. But...
All right. I read it differently then.
You think Anakin had a father?
No, when I read the comic, it didn't give me a clear answer.
It's not just the comic. It's from all the stuff. There's no...
Right.
That's what I'm saying. I know that the comic vaguely did the thing of well, maybe people were like, oh, Palpatine created him, not Plagueis. It wasn't clear exactly how it went down. I'm not saying it writ it out for you. But my entire point is the fact that I'm fine with exactly what you said. You didn't like it because you felt it was a lazy writing, and you didn't like the story path of it. I semi-agree with most of that. I
would have liked the story path if they wrote it better. If they gave something more than just the fucking Aftermath trilogy. You gave a couple novels, and then you're like, oh, this is a shoo-in for Palpatine? What the fuck?
I know, but I'm not breaking through to you. You're talking about that you don't like how it was done. I agree that there was more that they could have done to make it clear. I'm saying that people complain that it broke Star Wars. The fact that Palpatine resurrected from all of Star Wars, that every time we've seen a movie or read a book, not every time, some don't, but a lot of them introduced new shit. Right? In the original trilogy, there wasn't throwing, Darth Vader threw it, but it wasn't, he didn't, recall it back. There wasn't, the lightsaber throw, right? There wasn't a double-bladed lightsaber. There wasn't nearly as many force powers. I'm trying to think of exactly what force powers are new in the prequels, but there were new ones that weren't heard of, right, in the original trilogy. Yeah. All these times it was like, oh, the Force can do that. Oh, Clone Wars, you had like the gods of Mortis. Okay, what is that? In Legends, you had all kinds of shit. Bane did in essence transfer, or attempted in essence transfer. Even if you want to get closer to canon, Plagueis thought it was possible, and he was researching it his entire life. So all I'm saying is the resurrection thing and the cheating death thing was actually set up from the beginning. It didn't happen. Like, not everyone was doing it. How did it? It actually in Legends was kind of it was the Sith way of achieving like eternal life or close to it, whereas the Jedi way was to become one with the Force, and if you did it the right way, you could become a Force ghost. The whole purpose of the dark side was like all selfishness. So they couldn't become Force ghosts, but they could like haunt an item like Bane does in the tomb on oh god, what is it, Moraban or Korriban?
I always
whatever, Moraban, Korriban. I think it's
it.
Moraban in canon and Korriban in KOTOR.
I always.
But so like that's because it was a mix of the Sith magic that Dooku. It's all confusing. My point is, each time we learned something new, someone had a problem with something. Like, this one was actually pitched a lot in Legends and was hinted towards in canon, with him talking about Plagueis the Wise and cheating death and all this stuff. And that's how Anakin actually turns, because he thinks he can save Padme, blah, 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 blah. It was all, like, really set up the whole time. So all I'm saying is I'm not offended, and it's not that surprising at all that Palpatine essence transferred and was still, if you even want to call him, alive. It's not shocking. It wasn't done well. I don't mind it. I completely understand if you hate it. Like, that's not my issue. I'm just saying, like, it's not surprising. It was there to use, is all I'm saying.
All right.
None of what you've said is wrong. You're completely right. It probably was. And the opinion parts are completely up to you. All I'm saying is that the fact of the matter that it did not break Star Wars as much as people, like, it shouldn't have been shocking if you were paying attention. Not the story, the actual event of him surviving. That's all I'm saying.
All right. Yeah, I mean,
they could have explained it. They could have done a better job. They could have not done it. Like, it didn't need to be done, but it was set up.
I'm saying, I guess you're right. I just don't. Yeah,
you didn't like it, and that's fine.
I'm having a hard time.
Not a lot of people did like it.
Yeah, I just thought they could have done it way better. I thought the writing, obviously, we talked about this. I think the writing was piss poor.
Yeah,
and it just they didn't execute it right. They just didn't. That's why I was like, really. But, like, yeah, it's not shocking in that sense. Like, I guess you're right. It's not really that shocking. There hasn't, like, there's always been all these weird things, especially in, like, Clone Wars, like you were saying, and stuff like that we would later on find out. But it's just, yeah, part of me is just like...
There was a lot in the sequel trilogy that they did not...
God. Why? Like, why?
There are a few scenes and a few things you could have done, and it wouldn't have fixed it for everyone, the people who just hate it in general. But I think there's a few things you could have done in the sequel trilogy that I could do. Like, I could tell you the things that you could have done that would have helped you enjoy it, because you wanted to like it. You don't hate them, but you didn't love the way they did it. Stuff like, very simply, The Force Awakens... doing more with the New Republic. Give us a sense of scope on what the fuck Starkiller Base did. Because there is just nothing. There is no explanation of what the Resistance is, what the New Republic... You have no fucking... If you're just watching that cold turkey, it seems like the Empire's in charge again.
That's what I'm saying.
It doesn't feel like they came back.
That's why I'm saying I think it's going to be interesting when my fiance watches it, because she's going to be like, what just happened?
I think she's just going to think that they didn't get beat.
Yeah, but
I think that's what they... Oh, the Empire came back. Like, I think that's what it seems like. Yeah.
It's like, and that's, but like she reads books and stuff, so like she's gonna get, like, she predicted fucking the whole prequels from the very beginning. She's like,
Yeah.
oh, those people are gonna fall in love, blah blah blah. She already figured it out right away without any knowledge. So I'm like waiting to see what she thinks of these movies, and she might just be like, really? Like,
yeah, I don't think so.
really?
I think these movies, I think because of time, like we've talked about, because of time, I think these movies are, if you're watching them for the first time now, I think a lot of people will enjoy these movies more than any of the other ones. Just simply because of graphics and like new age kind of stuff.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying
I think that's the majority.
Wise.
Yeah, and I think it's hard for me to say. I don't think people who don't have the nostalgia, I think people going in cold turkey who didn't see the first ones first and don't have the nostalgia, I'm not surprised when I hear people think that the sequel trilogy story is better. Like, it's just, it's a totally different, me and you cannot see it for what it is as a whole now. Right? Will always be colored, and everyone will always be colored by which ones you saw first, when you saw them. Yeah, and we can't be pulled out of that. But it doesn't, when you try to pull yourself out as much as you can and analyze it like, what will people think who are just seeing this now? I am not surprised when people say that they like the sequel trilogy more than the original trilogy. Even the story, which is mind-boggling, but it's a bias thing. It's really like, it's, I it's surprising to me too, but I mean, it boggles my mind, but it's not necessarily surprising. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. We could go all night about that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what she says, because maybe she likes one of the other stories better. You know what I mean? She'll definitely like the movies better.
I think she'll like the movie. I mean,
but story wise,
really
I don't know.
She really liked Rogue One, so that was obviously modern. But like, I think I've always said I think she's gonna like the action. But story wise, I think she's gonna be like, "What the fuck is going on?" Because she reads a shit ton of books. She reads all, like, I think that's why I think she's either gonna completely surprise me, or she's gonna be like, "What the fuck is going on?" Like, this makes no sense. So we'll see what she says.
All right, man.
All right. I think we'll wrap that up since we went way over time. Any last comments, thoughts, concerns on the sequel trilogy?
No, but we are doing we're doing our normal podcast this weekend.
Yep.
And but we're also doing a podcast with Ebonhawk.
Yep. So we're going to be guests on Ebonhawk. So check them out. They're actually on, I think they're on Anchor too, I believe. So they're on all the same services that we are. And we're going to be on with them this weekend. They're going to be recording it and releasing it. So we'll let you know when that drops. And we'll also do our own episode as well. Also, keep an eye out on HoloNet Lives. That's, I'm doing them pretty much daily. If there's anything new and exciting going on with Star Wars news. Other than that, make sure to keep your eyes peeled. Subscribe to our YouTube and our podcast services. And, we're always looking for feedback and reviews, so we appreciate the support. And I think that's it. So we'll catch you later, Padawans.
Later.